All right, friends, I am back. Here's our little third part in our little video series here on body wisdom, food freedom, and rebuilding our roots. Okay, so if you missed the other two, go back and watch because these are going to kind of build on each other. Now, the last time that I was with you, we talked a little bit about trust, right? That trust is that foundational building block, that element that makes every relationship so strong. When we have trust, we can build these strong roots, right? So that then eventually we can put ourselves with these strong roots in new fertile soil and watch ourselves thrive. And I asked you to rate yourself on this element of trust with your body, right? And we're using these words, body wisdom, food freedom, but what do they mean, right? And in body wisdom is knowing, right, that my body is inherently very wise. It is full of intelligence, giving me information all the time. My challenges with body and food is information. Pain in my body is information. Symptoms are information. And yes, feeling, joy and pleasure, that's also information, right? But in order to access this information, I have to have the element of trust. I have to know that my body is this wise and compassionate friend, this amazing partner, and that I can trust my body and my body can trust me. In order to get out of the old toxic diet, and yes, unfortunately, there's a lot of toxic wellness culture too now, we've got to rebuild the trust. And we have to, one of the things I like to share with clients also is putting well-being over wellness. That's very different, right? Like really thinking about the wholeness of who you are and how is your being? Is your being actually well? Are you sacrificing the beauty of this being to hit some wellness standard, to hit some diet standard, or are you really thinking about what it's going to take for this to thrive? And one last thing I want to say about before I move on to what I wanted to share with you today is that we're putting this parallel, right, to relationships. And what we always need to remember is that no two relationships are exactly the same, right? You go talk to your best friend and what your best friend, oh, me and my husband, we love to do this for date night, right? And you're like, that doesn't sound like fun at all to me. Is there something wrong with you? No, right? Or you might talk to your friend, you might get an idea that like, that actually sounds good, never thought of it. And then maybe you go there to this restaurant or you try this activity, whatever. But just always remembering that you have to always run it through the filter of your partnership, right? Not just always hearing from someone thinking, if they're doing that, it's working, then it must work for me. That's a lot of what happens also in like toxic relationships with body and food. Outside sources telling us only what we should be doing, and we don't run it through the filter of ourselves. Okay, so today's little mini lesson that I want to share with you, the course that's coming up is Body Wisdom, Food Freedom. So there's that other element, food freedom. And I really want to talk with you a little bit today about that element of freedom. So the thing is, right, trust, that element of trust leads to that element of freedom. I want you to really think about that connection for just a moment, right? Let's go back to the whole relationship metaphor, because again, sometimes when we can, sort of put on the metaphoric lens of relationship with another, we can see it differently. And then we can come back to like what we're doing with body and food and be like, oh, wow, now I see it. A lot of times we think that, again, body and food is so separate, so different. It only has to be diet and exercise, that's it. But we gotta look at the lens of relationship first. So we talked about trust, and I asked you to rate your sense of self-trust with your body. And we talked about how once we have trust with the other, right, with our partner, whoever that partner might be, in this case, it's your body, right, and your relationship with food, that when there's that trust, what gets to happen? I want you to think about that. What gets to happen in your relationships, right, when there is trust? Well, hopefully what you're coming up with and thinking of is that there is a sense of freedom that you can go anywhere. And I wish I knew this exact quote, but it's this quote from this poem that I loved, and it was something along the lines of like, knowing that there's a love built up for you, that you will be able to basically go anywhere in the world and be connected to that love, right? Which is very different than if you have the kind of love that you feel is so contingent on you have to micromanage everything, or the person's going to lose interest in you, or not stay connected to you, not try as hard, or cheat on you, right? All these kind of things, right? Where you feel like you have to circumvent a lot of control, or you have to keep your life and you really small in order to keep that thriving. Versus if there was so much trust and so much connection that you felt like, wow, this is so good and so nurturing that I now have the freedom to be the full expansion of myself, okay? Go anywhere, do anything within respect to the relationship. So we're not disrespecting the relationship, right? But now I'm expansive and I'm the fullest, most embodied, authentic version of myself living my life, thanks to that trust, thanks to these strong roots. Now that is what we all want, hopefully, in a relationship. But guess what? That's what we should all want in our relationship to ourselves. I want you to think for a minute, how much in the typical diet culture and even wellness culture is that being shared with you? I know for me, when I was at the height of my struggles with my relationship with body and food, and by the way, if you don't know me, hi, Anita Avalos here. The reason why I do this work, and I've devoted my life's work for over a decade to this, working in workshops, working with private clients, group coaching, all of these things. The reason why is because I struggled so much around this for so long, and my life was so tiny, and my world was so small because it was so about maintaining with so much control body and food. And I actually never got to where I wanted to be with any of it. My world, my mind was taken up with so much of it. But I really want you to think, how much is this talked about? It's really not, right? It's not really talked about. We talk a little bit now more about some habit changes, and I love that now there's some more conversation around things like sleep and hormones, because no one ever used to talk about that before. Back in the day, it was always just like calories in, calories out kind of a thing, and how hard you could work out. But we're really not still in this conversation for the most part, getting to the root of all of this, getting to the strong foundations, right? That once we can unpack, see, and then create new ways of trusting our body and trusting food, of reflecting on our story with body and food, on reflecting on our ways that we've connected with our body, on reflecting on why these challenges are here in the first place and what they're here to teach us, and then transform that into something beautiful. No one's talking about this as much as they should be, and the soul work that is involved in it. I know why, because it's not as sexy as me giving you a quick solution and saying, here you go, and you can drop 20 pounds and your life's gonna be perfect. Look, I will tell you, I have worked with many women over the years, worked with men too, but specifically women who have been, by any societal standards, very trim, thin women who still felt a lack of ease and peace in their bodies and in their relationship with food. So if it was just about hitting a number, those women would have never come to me, okay? People have come to me for many different reasons. Some because they wanted a different way they wanted to think about weight loss. Some they just wanted to really just change their relationship with food. And others who knew, like, I know physically I'm small, I'm tiny, I meet the standard, whatever it might be, right? That society puts on us. But I still don't feel at home on my body. I still don't feel good. I still don't feel what? I still don't feel free. Oh my goodness. I still don't feel free because the trust isn't there. So when the trust is there, the freedom can follow. Let me say that again. When the trust is there, the freedom can follow. So I want you to write now, if you have a journal, take it out, write it down. I think it's more powerful if you write, actually, instead of just answering in your head. Again, reflecting back to some of the things I shared on the first video. What would freedom feel like to you? What would freedom feel like to you? Now I want you to, and I'm talking specifically about your relationship with body and food, right? What would it look like? Now, I also want you to think about this element that we've been talking about with relationship later on that, right? That freedom also has this connection to the trust and respect that we're having in the relationship, right? Because if we've got this trust and rapport with body, we aren't going to keep repeating typical behaviors we may have in the past that maybe speak to us on the side of freedom, but don't actually speak to the element of trust, right? Because if I feel free in my relationship with body and food, I'm not going to then do things to damage the amount of trust that I'm also building and keeping that rapport going. So what do I mean by that? I know a common fear when I start talking to people about breaking free from diet mentality or eating more intuitively. They're like, if I did that and I gave myself that kind of permission and that kind of freedom, well, then I would just, I would overeat all the time. I would eat nothing but sweets. It would be, pizza for days, that kind of thing. And I hear that and I understand that. But really what's beneath that is that what I hear under that is that this element of trust isn't being met or explored fully. Because when we trust ourselves, when we trust the relationship, I've got your back, you've got mine, okay? I'm not going to rely on, I don't want to rely on past conceptions of freedom that are going to damage the core of that are going to jeopardize the core of that, right? So let's go back to that quote that I shared, okay? That quote that was along the lines of, and I'm gonna look it up and give it to you guys exactly. I know who wrote it. I gotta think how to say her name correctly, or his name correctly, actually. I'll find it, don't worry. But in any case, right? That quote that said, when you have a love that gives you sort of the wings to just, you can go anywhere in the world and you know that love's there, right? That quote doesn't say you can go anywhere in the world and, violate the relationship, not have respect for the relationship, and the love's gonna be there. That's not quite the feels that I'm going for. Maybe you're going for, I don't know. I mean, everybody's, you do you, but that's not the kind that I'm trying to build or have or experience, right? So in other words, what I'm saying is that instead of thinking about freedom with body and food as this thing that's going to tarnish your connection with body and food, that's going to take you away from where you want to build, might we be able to flip that on its head and see, oh no, actually no. This freedom, this definition of freedom is actually going to only enhance it. I'm going to be able to have pleasure with body and food. I'm going to be able to eat in a pleasurable way. I'm going to be able to move in a pleasurable way. I'm going to be able to have fun in my body. I'm going to be able to move authentically in the world. I'm not going to be so caught up in here, I can't go out and be my fullest expression of me, which, by the way, I just want to say is the whole point of all of this. The gig is up. Or the jig is up, one of the two, right? That it's, for me personally, doing this work isn't that I want you to get to this certain number. It's that I want you to feel so good, okay? And how the relationship with body and food, you've got these strong roots, you've got this sense of freedom around all of that. And then you're out there being the fullest version of you. You're traveling, you're dating, you're loving, you're exploring, you're studying things you want to, you're wearing clothes that make you feel alive, you're trying this class, you're writing the book, you're shining your light, because you're not in the small goal of, oh, the BMI said I should weigh freaking whatever, 115 pounds, or else, okay? Or the chick I saw on Instagram that she's got, she got a freaking cut 6-pack. I gotta go do that, or else, right? It's not about living the small goal. It's about the bigger goals. And then I'm doing the things with body and food that are gonna help enhance the roots. But the roots are gonna have trust. The trust is going to build the freedom. The freedom is going to be then, it's going to expand between body wisdom and food freedom. It's going to be soul wisdom, life freedom, heart freedom, light freedom. The light is getting in. And boom, life is going to be lit up. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that feels a hell of a lot more empowering and exciting than just a small goal of, freaking, I lost 10 pounds in 2025. Yay for me, or whatever the hell. Okay? Now, does this mean that you can't want to lose weight? Does this mean that you cannot want to, build on a certain muscle or body part? No. Okay, I just started lifting weights again. I haven't been lifting weights, and I was like, I really want to start lifting weights, and I've created a little schedule for myself, but it's light about it. I'm not like, look, I'm not into berating myself to get somewhere. I'm doing this from body joy and having fun and experimenting. If I had done this 20 years ago, it would have been a very different thing, okay? So no, it's not that you can't have any desire to shapeshift the body or any of that, but it's really about checking where the roots of that desire are coming from. What's the story you've got about it? What is the self-talk that's happening about it? It's all of that, just like you would in any relationship. Berating, punishing, demeaning the partner does not get us the change that we want. We all know it. We've probably all tried, at certain points to do things in a way or say things in a way to get our point across. And if it's not coming from love, AKA trust, AKA expansion, it just falls on deaf ears. So I went on a long time today. So I'm gonna start to say goodbye. But what I want you to think about today, and then the next time I see you, I'm just gonna give you a little rundown into body wisdom, food freedom, so that you can, check in and see if it feels aligned for you and where you want to go in this approach. But I want you to think about, in your relationship with body and food and the level of trust that you are experiencing, okay, are you feeling that sense of freedom? And if not, what would freedom feel like for you in body and food? Imagine, step into that version, maybe take a moment to meditate, think about what does that freedom-filled version of you feel like, and play with that and see if the goal starts to feel more expansive than maybe the ones that you set a week ago when you were kind of contemplating 2025. Thanks for being here today. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.